Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Extra special thanks to guest lecturer patron Ryan Lilly. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Argent Saga Teachers Lounge.
Wow.
Glad to have you here. Welcome back after a long week of hopefully getting demos with the Argent Saga demo decks to the Teachers Lounge, your soon-to-be favorite live Argent Saga podcast, Argent Saga / Force of Will podcast, featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, a.k.a. DMO73, and way over on the left side we have Ryan Miles.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Miles. I help make Argent Saga, and I get paid every time I say Argent Saga. Come play Argent Saga.
He's the community manager over there, rocking it out. Thank you for joining us and being a part of our little crew. And in the middle, missing, Brandon Bremont.
He's just
sponsored by Vanilla Coca-Cola.
Oh, goodness.
Excellent. We all got our sponsorships
here. Frank Kloster is supposed to be joining us, so hopefully he will be joining us soon. So for those of you who are new to this group, this podcast, we thought we'd kind of talk about who we are a little bit, what brings us to the table, and kind of what we're excited about Argent Saga, kind of our level of expertise. So I'll start with myself. My name is Jeremy Franklin. I go by DMO73. I have been doing Force of Will content for the past 5 years. Previously, before playing Argent Saga, or playing Force of Will, I played Kaijudo. And so when I saw Argent Saga being produced, I was like, oh, this is just Kaijudo meets Force of Will, and it's really solid. So I wanted to jump in and start producing content for that as well. I travel around and do live streams for all of the Force of Will Grand Prix and other major events. I've even covered the World Championship as well once, and hopefully we'll be doing again this year. But I'm really excited to be playing this new game, getting back to that having towers, having shields kind of stuff, and not having to track life totals during live streams. Really excited about that.
That'll be awesome.
So,
that's me.
I'm the community manager for Argent Saga. I ended up out here. I was a big old Force Will player, as all of you watching know, because you all know this is usually a Force Will podcast. I'm the best Force Will player alive, and now I'm helping make Argent Saga great again. That's what I'm doing.
Great again?
Great, yeah. You had to throw the meme in there. So yeah, I'm helping to communicate with the players. As a player for the past 4 years, Jeremy's on the content, and I've made a lot of content. But for the most part, I just like going to events, even when I already have my paid invite, because I love interacting with the people that play these kind of games. So that's kind of the passion I'm trying to bring to this project, and hopefully that I can make this game great and a great experience for everyone involved.
And in the middle.
So I'm Brandon. I played a lot of Magic the Gathering and then moved to playing Force of Will. I've qualified for Force of Will Worlds for the last 3 years. I believe last season I had the most Force of Will tops in the United States, so I like to think I'm not a slouch. I'm the best player in the United States whose last name isn't Miles, so I got that going for me.
You're not even the best Force Will player whose last name is Bremont, so I don't know about
that. That's fair. Okay, that's true. I'm actually the third best Bremont of all things, so really low down on the totem pole. But anyway, I've played a ton of Argent Saga, loving the game so far. I'm not even just saying that as like, oh, I'm on an Argent Saga podcast. I need to say that I have genuinely enjoyed it, and both of these guys can attest that I've been in a lot of Facebook chats, just want to talk about this game. Super excited to get into it. Super excited for the online tournament this coming Saturday, and for the 10K in Atlantic City come June.
Yeah. So before we go any further, now that kind of introduction's out of the way, I wanted to let you guys know some information about how you can support us in what we do in terms of helping us to produce better content, get better equipment, make it out to events to stream, all that kind of stuff. There should be a little join button down below. You can click that. It's $5 a month to join as a member of the channel. You get access to all kinds of cool perks. Right now, they're all focused on Force of Will, but you can consider that you will have the same perks in regards to Argent Saga. So one of the perks that comes with it is getting to submit deck profiles. Naturally, right now, it's just Force of Will, but as Argent Saga sets come out, you will be able to submit Argent Saga deck profiles to be featured on the channel. You can also check us out on Patreon. Links to that down below as well. All of that goes to help us buy new equipment. Like I said, it just helps keep all of this running, and we just push it all back into the channel. So we appreciate that. We also thank our sponsor, Odyssey Games. There's a link down below, and you saw their kind of blurb at the beginning. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this either. Last thing that I want to note for those of you who are Force of Will players who are hanging out with us, don't forget that there is a GP coming up in like 3 weeks in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. There is a link down below to the event on that on Facebook. It is a 3K event. And it's looking to even get higher pricing, so definitely go check that out if you're interested in making some money and getting an invite to Worlds. So check that out. And huge thanks to Todd for all the work that he's doing. He's in the chat right now. He's doing a ton of work to make that event super awesome.
Spot on, Todd.
Yeah. But you were talking about June, right? In June, we have the first Intro Deck 10K event happening.
Super hyped.
Yeah, and you can actually go. So the way that Jim has said that it's going to work is if you have an invite for any other game to Nationals, you can play at the Argent Saga event, and you will get an intro deck. It'll be, I believe, Ryan, you can correct me because you would know, it is going to be the alpha intros, so it's not going to be like final card art or anything.
That is correct.
So it'll just be the alpha intros, but you get a free alpha intro just for showing up if you have an invite for any other game, and you can play for a potential spot of 10K in prizing for this massive launch event. Going to be super awesome. Really excited to hear more about that as we get closer. So let's talk about exactly what is Argent Saga. Ryan, why don't you tell us what is Argent Saga?
Hey there, thanks for sitting down, everyone. Argent Saga is a game where the objective is to kill your opponent's towers and then hit them once in the face so that you can win the game. Basically, I've heard it compared. Yeah, I demoed this weekend, so I got my spiel down. Don't worry.
I love the voice. Was this voice like a part of the spiel?
No, I didn't even. I only demoed like one time because I was doing a bunch of other like recording
I'll
stuff.
demo just for this voice.
I'll make sure to bring it to ACP. Yeah, so it's similar. Normally when people like sit down and like want to learn how to play the game, I'll ask them what games they've played before. Usually it's either Yu-Gi-Oh or Dragon Ball or Force of Will, and a lot of people play Hearthstone. The way I like to describe it is it's a combination of like Magic the Gathering or Force of Will with Hearthstone combat, and then with like Pokemon prizes or Kaijudo prizes. And I know it's heavily influenced by Kaijudo and Duel Masters. Those aren't games that I'm particularly familiar with. So Jeremy, you could probably attest more to like the similarities and that kind of stuff.
Particularly like the towers are essentially the same way that Kaijudo did towers. We had shields where when something attacked it, you would reveal it, and then if it was a shield break, you would get to cast it for free, otherwise it'd go into your hand. And shields worked to where if you attacked them with anything, they just immediately broke, didn't matter what power, which is one of the things that I think I really enjoy about Argent Saga is two pieces. One, the towers have health now, like a defense stat, so like you have to hit them for enough damage for them to actually break. And two, they always do something when they break. There was never a worse feeling in Kaijudo when you're like, oh cool, my 5 shields were all nothing. That was a fun game. In Argent Saga, they will always do something when they break, and that does actually help the game a lot. And so if you're a person like me who played Kaijudo and had those complaints, congrats, they fixed it. So
and this might be a little nuanced, but the defense on the towers is actually a huge improvement to the Kaijudo system. Because it allows the towers to be statted based on how early they're supposed to be destroyed. So we won't get into too much detail, but basically currently there's 2 towers with 1,000 life and 3 towers with 1,500 life. The 1,000 towers are both better to break early, and the 1,500 towers are better to break later from the perspective of the controller. And so it really allows the game pace to be set such that you are encouraged to always be attacking, but then things slow down and develop into later game. It really helps to section off the game into an early game, a middle game, and a late game. And it's just brilliantly designed. It's so hard to get out into speech without you playing. But the first time you play the game and you're just like, wow, I want to break the fire tower early and I want to break the water tower last, and they are statted exactly appropriately for that. You're just like, wow, this is a super elegant system. I love it.
Yeah, it definitely just like one of the things that really got me on board with the project was when I had it demoed to me the first time, just like playing the game, even though I didn't know all the cards. And I'm usually like the kind of player who wants to learn a game just so I can build crazy decks, just like the foundation that the game is built on has all the right elements from all the right games and a little bit of its own flavor that just make it like when you start adding cards onto the game, it just feels like great every single time you sit down and play. because there's so many things that you are in control of, and also things that are going to let you come back from like what seems like unwinnable situations just because of the way that the resource mechanic works and the way that the tower mechanic works. So with all those things combined, it's just like a super satisfying game in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other thing that the game does, I think, very well is the deck building piece in terms of colors or elements. Sorry, in this game, is the fact that like there is a naturally built into the game color limitation because the game uses Hearthstone style resources where it just produces one every turn and everything has a neutral cost. But your deck build can only apparently I can't be heard. But the deck build, is that a little better? The deck build itself is locked based on what your champion and spirit are, which I think actually helps the game a lot. So I'm saying my mic is slow. I'm trying to fix that.
I got sensual there for a second, so I hope it is good because I'm feeling real good.
I can hear it.
We do have a lot of really cool mechanics, and obviously some things coming in like set 1 that I can't talk about. So
no exclusive spoilers yet, huh?
Yeah, nothing like that, but maybe soon. You never know. We did have a couple spoilers in the Argent 101 series that some people
did. Some people caught that.
Yeah,
I was happy to be able to kind of share a few secret things there.
Yeah, but just like if you're a fan of Force Will, I think you'll be a fan of this game. It has the same thing where your lands aren't in your deck, and then you get to do things on your turn before you untap. So it is like the draw priority untap kind of thing, which just, in my opinion, lets more skilled players like have more agency over their resources, which I think is really cool. And then combat is very similar to like what you would see in Force Will or Hearthstone, where it's like there is no combat phase like MTG or Yu-Gi-Oh! You get to declare your attackers individually. There's a fluid main phase.
The continuous main, as it were. I like that term.
Yeah, and then as you were saying with the towers, like hitting towers, there are ones you want to hit early, there are ones you want to hit late, but like there is some RNG to it because you don't know which tower's which. But you can play units that don't have enough power to break the towers that you don't want to break. And just like kind of play around the game like that. There's just so many things that you can do as a player, and even only in the interdeck format, there's just like a lot of actual like metagame stuff developing, and like some stuff is a little bit more better than others out the gate. But like there's just a lot of things that you can do as a player to improve your experience and get better at the game. And I like it when games feel like that. I don't like Magic the Gathering where I have all my lands in my hand, or I have all creatures and I can't play the game. Or I don't like Hearthstone where like if you don't have a 1 or 2 drop and like you don't get to play a card till turn 3, then you just lose the game. And like you start the game with like 3 cards in hand in Hearthstone or something absurd. So all that combined, like that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, so for people who are interested in, if you haven't gotten a chance to actually see the game played, you can look here on the channel. I did a demo with Max back in Vegas. Then he and I got to play the game. You can check a demo out there. As well as if you go to the Argent Saga YouTube channel, Ryan, feel free to post a link to it in the description. You can go check out the Argent Saga 101 tutorial series, which I made as a project with Argent Saga to help teach you all the mechanics. It works exactly like the old Force of Will 101 series that we did here, where it's just each video is a different lesson broken down very, very quickly, and it ends with a fully fleshed out commentated demo game to kind of show you what it all looks like all put together. Definitely a great way to get a semblance of what the game looks like, because we can only do it so much justice in talking without visuals, but I definitely recommend going to go check that out.
Toby, tower HP recovers just like resonators at the end of each turn, but the highest toughness on a tower is 1500, and there are several 2-drops in the game with 1500 life, so it's not really so much a threshold you need to meet as much as it is saying that 1-drops tend to not be able to break it. It's really more of a divide between resonators that can break it and resonators that can't, rather than like a building up kind of thing.
For sure. I mean, and who knows? We could eventually see towers that like are vanilla. Maybe have a really, really minor effect, but have like 4 grand, defense. Who knows? Like,
Jeez.
there is that creative space that comes with it. Ultimately, the way Argent works is you have to play one tower for each element, and then as new sets come out, there will be replacements. So like multiple different types of fire towers that you could play or stuff like that, which I think is going to be really cool, right? Because then what happens is when you sit down to play the game, you have to reveal your 5 towers to your opponent, so to verify that you're playing one of each color. But then your opponent can be like, oh, they're playing this, this special tower. I have to play around that. Like, it's very different than what I would normally expect. And that's going to add a different layer to deck building that I'm actually really excited to toy around with as it comes out, of course.
Oh, that'll definitely be fun. And the other thing is, some people might be waiting for like set 1 to drop to kind of see how the set's going, and that's fine if you do. But as we alluded to earlier, there is a 10K at the end of June and an online tournament this coming Saturday that has a box for first place in the intro deck format. That's totally free to enter. Mat giveaways, box giveaways, pack giveaways. And as Ryan kind of mentioned, the starter deck format is actually extremely depthful and extremely fun. I've been playing a ton of this game, and I kind of thought going into it that starter decks would just be very simple cards, not a whole lot of meta. There'd be an obvious best deck, but removal would be and the best thing that you can do. Not the case at all. There are at least 3 different decks that are on the table for viability. Through the mixing and matching of the cards and spirits and rulers, and I just think that's awesome. So I'm very excited to see how that goes out. Did I say ruler? My bad. We're gonna have to get used to that.
Yeah, different terminology, different day. But yeah, so you reveal the towers to your opponent, you shuffle them face down, and then they go face down in a random order, hidden to both players, and neither player can look at them until they've been attacked. So there you go. So yeah, there is definitely there's the starter deck that's being run by True Duelist TCG. They're a Twitch channel, content producers. They're hosting an event this weekend. It is a 1-day Swiss online event with Untap. So if you go on untap.in, and if you just search True Duelist TCG or look at the Argent Saga Facebook group, there's a link to that, by the way, down below. You can get logged in to do that, and it's just free to enter. You get to play for a day, build whatever you want. It'll be the same format that 10K's in. And then, winner gets a free box of the product. So huge shout outs to those guys for hosting that event. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked about Argent a lot. Feel free to keep bringing in those comments, those questions in the chat, guys. We want to make sure that we answer those. But what I'd like to do now is we've talked about these cards a lot, so let's take a look at them, right? So I actually have here, to bring up on screen, I have the database that was made. I know that you guys are working on an official database, yes?
Yeah, we are.
But for right now, we have someone who did make a fan online database. You can see here it says Argent Saga. There's the link up at the top. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about each color, each element, and kind of what it's wanting to do out of this intro. We'll talk about the champions a little bit and kind of some key cards that we're thinking are kind of ones to kind of give it that identity. And then we'll kind of talk about our thoughts just about the meta kind of as a whole. So we'll start here. I'll let you guys go ahead and pull up the database if you haven't already. We'll start with light. So the light champion is Liam. So Liam and white, light, is all about these gears, right? It's all about knights and their equipment kind of marching forward and like trying to take out their opponent through like their organization and the gear that they bring to the battle. So Liam helps in terms of consistency with bringing you gears to hand as you break towers, but you can also pitch gears from hand to like give your units temporary buffs, kind of like casting aside the permanent buff that comes from the gear for a temporary buff of 500 power. And I would say that there is a very interesting strategy to this card, because Argent Saga only has 5 unit slots that you're allowed to play on, and I have already seen players using Liam's effect on their opponent's units to like lose trades on purpose.
That's kind of funny.
Or like prevent their opponent from clearing a space that they might need, and stuff like that. So like there's already tricks that are being brought out just from these intro deck stuff. And then the spirit that goes with Sola lets you switch to active one of your exhausted or rested units at the end of every turn. So this kind of, again, coincides with what Light is trying to do. It's trying to make use of its equipment to bolster its units so that it can be aggressive and it can keep itself defensive. So
are we just so I kind of know here? Are we just going to give an overview of the color, or do you want me to kind of talk about the meta implications that I've found through my?
We can do that. We can talk about meta just in general as we go through each element. Sure. So that's kind of a intro concept of what Light's trying to do. It's these knights. You have these gears that you're trying to equip to the knights, to the units, to make them kind of get additional effects, essentially.
One important thing to keep in mind here, if you come from Force of Will or from Dragon Ball, you might be used to thinking of rulers as having like some set and that power level like of the ruler card itself being something that you need to think about, like say you're in Force of Will and you want to play a black rune deck. Well, you can play Lucifer or Lich and you can decide which of those things is more powerful. The thing you need to keep in mind in this game is that a lot of the power of the ruler is the fact that that's the color that your deck needs to be. So when I'm thinking about like which of these rulers is intrinsically the most powerful, the fact of the Jesus Christ, the champion is you're gonna have to catch me on that so many times. Which champion is the most powerful? It doesn't really matter because we're really talking about what the most powerful color is. If you want to play a white deck that is majority white, you're going to be playing Liam, and you don't really have a choice in the matter. So giving a power level rating to each of these is a little bit fruitless. That said, I do think Liam is the second best one. It does have a very good text on it. When you're destroying an opponent's tower, get a gear from your hand. It's actually a very good line of text. We're going to talk about standard Shard Sword here in just a second. It's actually the very first white card, but it also happens to be the best white card in the entire starter deck. And so when you kill one of their towers 3 times per game, you get to draw the best card of your deck, which is pretty darn good. The discarding a gear thing from hand to get +5 does not come up that often, not that I've found. It can, especially because you're going to be playing all 9 of your available gears just because you kind of need to, and standard Shard Armor is not really that good, so sometimes it's just better as the 0 mana pump, but the other ones you generally want to cast. As far as Soul is concerned, it also happens to be the second best spirit. The getting a 20/20 at quick cast speed, at instacast speed, is extremely powerful. Recovering your units to prevent them from being attacked is very good when you're being aggressive, and it's good when you're being defensive because you can attack with units with Guardian or a unit with standard Shard Shield giving it Guardian, and then still block with it, which is kind of what Light wants to be doing. So I think Soul is great. If Sola happens to be hindered by the fact that Fizzy is leagues better than everything else, like it's just an entire different playing field. But if there's a deck that's not Fizzy, it's almost certainly Sola.
Yeah. Overall, like I think like internally I'm mostly underwhelmed by white. I just really don't like the gear mechanic overall personally, because you get inherently 2-for-1 by towers very often. When you try and put your gears on things and you hit a red tower, you're just like, oh, I can't respond to that, so I guess I'm losing 2 guys at the same time. And also
this kind of sorry.
You can go ahead.
Part of the reason standard Shard Sword is so good is because it's the only one that doesn't 2-for-1 you. Because typically when you play standard Shard Sword, you're going to take one of their creatures the turn you play it. So and then if you kill that creature, then you just 2-for-2'd. So that's why Shard Sword is so ridiculous. But
target attack is very powerful. Like if you play Forcible, usually then like target attack in this game is more like valuable because of how much more difficult it is to attack units. And how not everything can block, only things with Guardian can block. So being able to remove threats with target attack is very valuable. I wasn't initially thrilled about Liam's ability where he searches a gear only when you kill towers. And I'm like, towers is like kind of hard to do because that means you're like actively winning the game. So this card's only good if you're already winning. But it actually is pretty decent because there are some powerful gears, like you said, with Shard Sword. And sometimes you do need the Guardian ability from the shield as well. And you do just naturally kill towers over game, so it's pretty good. And then I think Sola actually does carry Light as a color where the switching exhausted units to active means that you can be aggressive with your Guardians, whereas every other color requires you to strictly be defensive. You cannot attack with a Guardian if you want to block with it. Yeah, and then sometimes you just have a 2,000 power unit that you can just hit.
And what I said about the ruler effect not mattering because it defines your deck does not apply to the spirit. You can play a spirit in an off-color deck, or you can just play the spirit for like every color has at least 8 good cards that you can bring with it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so the way it works is there's this number here. You can see there's the 8 in the corner. That is that spirit's affinity. As future sets come out, we've been told that affinity number on different spirits probably will go up and down. But the way it does is it affects your deck's secondary color. So say I'm playing a red deck and I splash in Sola. What happens is that I play a red deck and I can play either 0 or exactly 8 white cards alongside the red set that I'm playing. So that's just important for people to know.
Yeah, not for sure.
So let's move on a little bit to our next color, unless there's anything in particularly white. I will say also that white has the most instances of Guardian of any color so far.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to go card by card. My bad. Let me see if there's anything. Yeah, maybe just a little bit. Maybe okay. So the second best card in the set is Quorum Lancer. We already talked about how target attack was ridiculous. Quorum Lancer is great. So 2-drop that attacks is a 1500 when it hits a unit. It can be equipped with a shard sword. It can be buffed with Vi to really make it so it's extremely difficult for your opponent to put anything on the board. Holy Slash is. Forcible players might know it as miscalculation. It's a lot worse in this game than it is in Forcible. This card's actually not good, despite looking okay. Lock the Knight of Fury is a 5-drop, but quickness is extremely powerful in this game. I've been really impressed with this card. And Quorum Rampart is a 2-mana 1000 with gets plus 500 for each gear equipped to it. This card's an easy way to just clean 2-for-1 yourself. It's really good with Shard Sword, but not good with anything else. And this card is underperformed for me, and Quorum Assassin is fine. You're just 1-for-1ing on Quorum Assassin, but it leaves behind a 2000 with quickness for 4, and that is a good body by itself. The rest of light is pretty mediocre.
Yeah, so ultimately, there is this, like, white has some really, really powerful cards, but at the same time, it also has kind of like the best defensive options, at least in the early game. However, please make sure that you're not hearing us say that means that white is by far the best, because it's not.
Oh no, green's the best by a mile. We're just remaking Force of Will. Like, I'm gonna make fun of it.
No, we're not. Because unfortunately, as much as I love air, and we'll get to that in a minute, I kind of think it's the least powerful, at least out of the gate.
It's kind of a weird thing to say, right? Because I could say like the water cards in aggregate are the least powerful, but every deck I'm playing is water because the water spirit's the best, and there's at least 8 good water cards. So does that mean that water is the weakest or water is the strongest? Like you can make an argument for both, and it's kind of hard to the assessment of whether or not a color is good is not useful. Anyway,
yeah, there's weirdness. So let's go ahead and jump into fire. So fire.
Let's not. No, we do not advocate jumping into fire. Please do not jump into fire.
Jump into the fire cards.
Okay, let's do that.
So let's do that. So fire is looking at this idea of oh geez, it's still echoing, and I'm trying to fix that. So fire is a lot of aggression, right? It is if Kyron Lucas was in the chat, it is the turn things sideways color. It likes a lot of pressure. It likes a lot of it's Spirit Corona. It's Soul Burst, where you Soul Burst is this mechanic where you permanently lose the spirit in order to be able to get this one-time effect. Corona's ability is literally just give something quickness, so it can attack at the beginning. And then, so dragons are a lot of just aggression. You'll see there's a lot of power bumping. So Imbued by Fire is a card that helps them get over bigger creatures with their tiny creatures. You have Juvenile Dragon, who if you control 2 other dragon units gains quickness, that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to find in the database our champion here, which is Dragonholt. And Dragonholt is Exhaust. Pay 1, discard a fire unit from your hand, and then bring a non-legendary dragon from your unit from your deck to your hand. So if you're a Forcible player, this is Grim. It's more balanced Grim because you can only do it once between 2 players' turns, right? So if I do it during my turn, I can't do it during your turn, as opposed to Grim, who just searches a turn if I really wanted to. But dragons are kind of all about just this constant wave of pressure. You'll see there's a lot of booster dragon says give another unit another 1,000 power for the turn. Deranged dragon is a 1-drop 1k, which is always going to has to swing every turn. It's a lot of aggression that comes from red.
Fire I find deeply humorous because it has the most powerful champion and the least powerful spirit. So we were talking about how white has the second best in both. Fire is the best champion and the worst spirit. So if you want to play Dragonholt, you're going to play it with something else because Corona sucks.
I do like Corona though. Specifically, like just giving something quickness is pretty good, especially if that something has Destroyer. That's like the most statically powerful effect for it. I think that the front side of the card is not particularly powerful. The discard of fire unit to deal 5. That's just like inherently not especially good. But like when you just like drop down a Draconic Destroyer, wipe their entire board, give it quickness, and dome 2 towers. Like that's a very powerful play and probably one of the most powerful plays in like the entire format for the intro decks. But yeah, like outside of that specific scenario, like the red.
So let's just cleanly like compare it to Sola. Sola can get a 20/20 with Defender at the end of your turn, which is the same as giving it Swiftness because it'll be able to attack when it comes back to your turn, and it doesn't need anything else, and it gives that gives that thing Guardian and doesn't require a card. Corona's first ability is actually Blink. The quickness needs another card to go with it and costs the card that you play. So like just comparing it to Corona, it's embarrassing. Like Corona just does like everything this card does better.
But the towers that you hit with Corona, to like when you do make a 0-mana 2000 power on like the turn 0, and then you have it with Swiftness essentially, like if you're cracking towers early game, it's just like towers early game are not as good as towers late game, I think. So I do think that there's merit to it, but I do, like you said, I think for the intro deck format, there are better spirits that you could be playing.
Yep. Anything else particularly in Fire that we really want to talk about? The other interesting thing about Fire is Fire, at least right now, has the most like sacrificing its own units, or not really caring if its stuff gets destroyed. Like Vengeful Dragon here, when he dies, if another dragon dies, he suddenly becomes cheaper, and a 3,500 power body is like a lot, especially for a 3-drop. When Soulfire Dragon, when she dies, when it dies, you get to go put a 1-cost dragon into play. Like it has a lot of that. Like if my aggression doesn't work and you kill it, I'm just gonna get more pressure out of it, kind of thing.
So I do have one kind of funny thing, and the only reason I even say this is to like blow players' minds if you're coming from Force of Will. Can you pull up the card Draconic Blast from this set? It's the 3rd card in red.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so when I first read this card, I was like, Draconic Blast, like, holy goodness, this is just a clean 2-for-1 on a quick cast card. Like, this is just stupid. And this has got to be like one of the best red cards in the entire set, is this thought that occurred to me. Turns out that it's not in any of my red decks anymore. This card, despite reading like an insane blowout, is not even good because resting your own dragon units is just way too much of a cost. Like, it's just not even real how unable the red deck is to ever pay for this in any meaningful way. And it's easy to get the like 1,000 off sometimes, but the 1,000 just doesn't kill very many relevant units. As the game gets later and you get more and more able to put dragons on the board, the less and less 1,000, 2,000, sometimes even 3,000 even ends up mattering. And so I heard a lot of people at Force of Will friends going through red being like, oh my goodness, Draconic Blast. And I know because I did the same thing. But the way that this game ends up working with tempo, this card is not actually good.
Derek is asking, what about the Tower Guardians? Is what the community is at least right now saying. There are units that get better if their matching tower has been destroyed on either side. Like Lucient is one. I'm trying to remember what the one.
Vehement Crimson Guardians, the red one.
Crimson Guardian that just destroys a unit if a fire tower is destroyed.
Another one of the best cards in the set, probably.
Vehement, Cosmore, and Nobe are all good. The Wind one and the White one are not good.
You don't like the Wind one?
The Wind one,
you didn't play Kaijudo, so I understand why you wouldn't like that card. My Kaijudo people in the audience, when we get to the Wind one, you're gonna go, what? So let's jump into Air. That's our Wind stuff. So our champion is Etten? I'm still echoing, and I don't know why. It is me, for sure. Or it might be one of your microphones.
Yeah, Etten is you.
I was supposed to be kind of like that. So Etten, the way he works, Wind is a lot of combos and tricks. So Air, the way Etten works is you pay 1 on either player's turn, destroy one of your own units, and you can cheat into play Air units that cost 1 more. So it's a lot of like trying to save. your units or like do combat tricks where you like swing with one, and then like if your opponent's going to try to swing into it, you sack it to make something bigger. It's also a way for you to be very resource efficient, because you can just pay 1 and pop a unit after you've swung rather than pay 4 for something or stuff like that. And then our spirit is Kite, and Kite, at least right now, is the only pseudo form of quote-unquote ramp. There's no ramp, at least right now. And it just says, during your turn, you can discard a card and put a unit back in your hand, and then if you do, you can switch an exhausted shard to active. And then he has the best... Kite is the spirit that has a removal spell attached to his Soul Burst, so you can bounce a 3-drop back to the hand in exchange for Soul Burst, which... again, is very tricksy and can actually just win you games if you've gotten the pressure off to like swing through. So when your opponent has a 3-cost Guardian, cool, put it back in your hand. Now my attack goes through and I win the game.
It's important to note that there's no ghost blocking in this game like Force of Will. So like if you remove a blocker, the attack is going to continue, which is part of Kite's power.
Yeah.
Todd, tonight we are primarily focusing on Argent. We're going to be going back to Force of Will next week, but since we had the opportunity, we're going to talk about the 5 different intro decks today. We'll be talking more about Force of Will next week. But you can see if you look at Air's, kind of mechanics, it's a lot of, if something returned to your hand, you can cast this. You can bounce your own guys back to your hand to make things cheaper or make things more powerful. And you have these airships, which are kind of like the top end. And a lot of the airships do like field manipulation, or when they die, you get other units back to your hand, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of misdirection, redirection, bouncing, manipulation. And in my opinion, they have the best Guardian in the game as it is right now, which is
Absolutely.
Skytree Blockade Ship. I have it pulled up here on the screen. It's a 4-drop, 2,500. It has Guardian, so a 2,500 Guardian by itself is already a beast. And then it also says units in front of this card can't attack, because there are set unit spaces on the board. And so being able to put this guy in front of their biggest creature, biggest unit, and then block one of their smaller units is really good.
For anyone that plays Magic out there, this is Fiend Hunter, which is a very good Magic card. So it's very.
Anyway. I really like a lot of Green's top end. I'm not entirely sure how it stacks up. I think that the main problem with Green in the intro deck format is that Skytree Warship is not as good as Cosmore, or as good as Draconic Destroyer, or even the Blackguard Destroyer guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
his name.
I agree.
Yeah. But I really like this card. It's not a bad card. It's just when you're looking at the other 6 drops, this one is just oh man.
Sorry.
Because there's no 7 drops, there's no real good way to use him with Aiton's ability to get value. I think the 5 drop's really cool. Also, you have all these ruined abilities on the big guys, so you play your big guy and they're like, wow, I have to kill it. But not only is the 5 drop, the battle cruiser, hard to kill because it cannot be targeted by spells, but also if you do kill it, I just get a Sky Raider unit with cost 3 or less back, which is going to be 1,000 power, I think.
You respond to them attempting to destroy it by popping cheat in Skytree Warship. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then you kill a 4-drop. You get to do a lot of really cool stuff. I think that green is the color that is not doing a whole lot with only the intro deck. But I can say when you get set 1 cards and you get some more powerful Sky Raiders and airships and stuff, that green gets a lot of cool stuff. So keep for that.
Green also has the 2 best removal spells in Tornado Shot and Hurricane Shot. Those cards are both intrinsically very powerful. The biggest problem with green is that it's just got so much chafe. There are just so many bad cards in green. You just can't even build a full deck with it.
Yeah,
tragically,
it's a problem.
And you can't swap out the spirit for green and still have a lot of cards.
Yeah. Even if you just wanted the 8 good green cards with Kite, Kite's just, it's probably the second worst spirit, so it's it's just not worth it to be green.
Unfortunately, that is definitely the case. But let's talk about the green Guardian, quote unquote, which is Great Hawk. So it's a 3-drop. It's the cheapest of the Guardians, quote unquote.
Right.
It's a 3-drop 1,500 that has an arrive. If an air tower is destroyed, you can exhaust a unit and bounce a unit back to hand. For Kaijudo players, this card is Piercing Judgment on legs and cheaper, which is pretty good by itself. The problem is, the weirdness is that the air tower is one that you really don't like to see broken early. Like you really don't want to see.
You do.
You want your
air is one of the ones.
Like
Yeah,
you want your opponent's air tower broken early. You as the player playing air, like you want to hold on to air tower. You don't like having your air tower broken early because it's the most like immediate advantage.
I mean, you have more control over what of your opponent's towers get broken than your own towers are getting broken.
Right.
But so the problem with this card is being the cheapest Guardian is actually a bad thing because you just can't reliably have this effect turn on until later. Like the reason that like Cosmore especially is very good is like the water tower is going to be broken eventually, and when it is broken, this card is going to end the game. Great Cock of Cloud Sea, like if it isn't on before turn 6, it's not exactly a very great late draw. Like rest unit, bounce a unit isn't going to recover a board that you were losing, whereas Cosmores basically terminate 2 units. And so I have been really unimpressed with this card. The amount of times that it's just sat in my hand dead as like I would have just liked it to be any other 3-drop that has more than 1500 power, or like the number of times I've cast it with no effect just because I like needed to cast it. Has made me really turn off on that card. I don't think it's very good at all.
Some other interesting things that it does have, it does have the only card right now that kind of pseudo locks out blockers in terms of Skytree Dragon. Skytree Dragon says you can lock a unit from being able to, when it attacks, something can't use Guardian for the turn. One of the things that Air out the gate is kind of having a disadvantage is it wants to be like bouncing a lot of its own stuff back to hand and discarding a lot. Like it's spending its own cards to do more things, but unfortunately it doesn't actually have a lot of like hand refill. So like that's kind of the problem that Air has going for it. However, I will say that Air is a ton of fun to play. I absolutely like the combo, the trixiness and stuff. It's definitely a fun deck to be playing. So hopefully set 1. I do believe we'll probably have a lot of good support for it. But out of the intro deck stuff, you're probably not looking at Air just too much.
Right.
So with that, let's go into Darkness with our Golem friend. Darkness is all about golems. Howena is our champion here. When she destroys a tower or unit in battle, you put a counter on her, and you can burn 3 counters on her to put into play a 1500 Golem Darkness token. So she just naturally, as the game progresses, just generates you free units. And then the Spirit, Luna, is the same thing. But you have to make your opponent discard cards. So again, naturally, as the game goes on, you just naturally steal card advantage out of your opponent's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Luna would be the best unit, would be the best spirit if Fizzy didn't exist. Tragically, Fizzy actually counters Luna. So Luna has been relegated to 3rd best spirit, even though in a vacuum she seems like she should be ridiculous.
Yep. And Darkness is a lot, weirdly enough, Darkness is a lot of having onboard synergies. Like that's how Darkness kind of thrives. At least in this beginning, there's not a ton of reanimate in Darkness. We see a little bit of it, but it's a lot more of like you play a golem, and if you had another golem, you can do something. Now, I will say that with the change to the rules that happened, that now playing a unit uses the Q, I think that golems have, weirdly enough, gotten weaker, just because like there's more time to respond to them and kind of be like, oh, well, you paid a 3-drop on curve, I'll kill your other golem, and you just played a 3-drop that does nothing. But it's a lot of like, Golem of Allurement. Golem of Jealousy is the main kind of draw engine, but if you control another unit, you get to draw a card. Even their removal spell is like you have to control a dark unit to be able to cast it. It's a lot of that kind of pieces, and they do have the only reanimate spell right now, which is Strike of the Golems. You pay 5 and put 2 golem units that have a total combined cost of 5 into play, which is a very good card considering how there is a golem that you have a 3-drop golem of It's like Golem of Allurement, right? You can steal a unit when it comes into play, and then you can go grab Golem of Jealousy. So you can like play that 5-drop, get a 3-drop and a 2-drop, steal your opponent's 1-drop, and draw a card. Like there's a lot of value that comes out of it. But it really all revolves around keeping board presence and keeping the synergy alive.
There's a real temptation in game design to make like the darkness color the control color because it's the most cleanly removal focused, and I'm really glad that Argent Saga avoided that temptation and made black the most tempo-y color. Like it's the color that has the most consistently, like I have a good 2-drop, I have a good 3-drop, I have a good 5-drop, etc., etc. And so you really just get to like continuously play cards, stay on board, keep their board cleared, keep a little bit ahead. You're good at every point in the game. I think Darkness is very well designed and very fun to play.
It also has one of my favorite 3-drops, which is Hellish Guardhound. Which is the 3-drop 2000. It's a beast. It's not a golem, so it doesn't synergize quite as well, but it is a guardian, so that's good. And it locks a unit out of being able to attack for a turn, which I think, again, you're talking about that kind of tempo style, right? So you're just like always kind of edging your way ahead a little bit at a time. So I like some of those effects.
It's kind of funny because it's just worse than the blockade, right? Like the blockade is like locks it down for as long as it's on the board.
Right. Yeah, it's just a little bit worse. And we can't cheat it in for 1.
Right. Nobe is also just stupid. Nobe is just is like, besides Cosmore, is like the second best guardian. Just a clean 2-for-1 and a 2500 guardian. Otherwise, like he's good. He's like the only one that you would just play without the arrive. Like a 4-mana 2500 guardian is like just almost playable of its own right. And then, but if you just tack on the 2-for-1 on it, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It has a lot of strength there.
I'm a big fan of Golem Indolence. Like we already talked about, target attack is just really, really good.
Yeah, that card's ridiculous.
Like when this is just 4-mana, 2500 target attack, but also like can get quickness and bigger. So like if they have a Nobe out or something, a 2500 guardian, you can just like play this card, discard a card, kill their Nobe, and then you just have this 2500 removal spell with legs for the rest of the game, unless they also have some way to kill your 2500 guy.
Yeah, because Golem of Indolence can only attack units.
Yeah.
It can't ever go towers, and it can't ever go face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Golem of Allurement can also take tokens, specifically the Light Tower token. So this is just a really fun play when you're Darkness. If you have the Light Tower scouted and you have a Golem of Allurement in your hand, great time to break it and then just slam the Golem of Allurement and steal it. Feels great. Almost nothing feels better.
Yeah, there's a lot of... My favorite deck, at least mained right now, is playing Hoenna, champion-wise, just because she naturally just says, as you play the game, generate advantage. So
Right.
at the end of the game, you get to a point where you're just like, oh, cool, end of your turn, produce 2 1500 golems.
And they break towers.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they're 1500 means that they're breaking towers.
Right, yeah.
Are very powerful units and like are not just like swarming your board. Like one of the things that you'll notice when you play this game, especially if you play blue, is that board space does get very, very important. I can't tell you how many times I've just like played a Phantasmal Guards on turn 1 and then just been like, man, I've kind of made a mistake here because I want to do more powerful things than have a 5/5 that can't attack with Guardian. And like the fact that the black tokens are just like actual threat. Like anything with 1500 is going to be a threat, and also it has to be able to attack to be a threat as well. But it's just like you will be able to create like the fact that you can get 0 mana bodies is going to be like Brandon had said a very good tempo play as you approach like the mid to late game.
Yep. Hyperion CG, they are going to do full art promos. We've actually seen Jim posting about it in the Facebook group. They're trying to figure out exactly how they're going to make them work, or what they're going to look like. But we are going to see full art promos come out. I, for one, really am excited to get full art champions. I hope that happens. I would love to see full art champions.
I have no comment. I will never say a word.
I'm going to see.
Not allowed. All right. Next we have blue with Miles, the Cryptic Caster.
Water, a.k.a. Jeff Jones.
Yeah.
I
love
like how the community is already starting to call cards by the person they're made after. Like,
Yeah.
Is
we don't
Jamal
even
Jeff
call-
Jones?
We don't
I didn't
even
even.
call the Guardian of the Azure Tower Guardian of the Azure Tower. We just call it Cosmore.
Of course.
So
I intend to keep that trend up as long as I'm playing this game. I think that is awesome. I think that people that win these things deserve that kind of the respect to have the card called them. Like everyone, like people that play Magic know that we call Dark Confidant Bob, and like I hope that continues to be the case for as long as this game is around.
I'm gonna work to get myself made into an Etten promo. That's my goal, because Etten's my boy. So let's talk Jeff Jones. Let's talk Jemiel. So water, just in general, is like bouncing and card draw. Like, really, it's just a lot. It's just a lot of bounce and a lot of card draw. And so Jemiel himself just says you place 1 counter on him for every water unit that comes into play, and then you can remove 3 counters to draw 2, and then discard 1 card. And it specifically is not discard 1 card of those 2 you drew. It is draw 2 cards into your hand, and then discard a card from your hand. So that's important, and it gives a lot more strength to that effect.
Yeah, this ruler is actually extremely good. The problem is that the rest of water kind of isn't, so he doesn't really get his chance to shine. But like when water gets more cards, I think that this ruler is going to be ridiculously sleeper. That is just a ridiculous effect.
It's another one of those things where just by naturally playing the game, you're going to generate advantage with Jemiel.
Right.
And then we have Fizzy.
Oh boy, what's this card do, Jeremy?
So Fizzy is a spirit that says once during your turn you can shard drain for 1 to draw a card. Shard drain is this mechanic where you take 1 of your shards, and it can be an active or exhausted shard, and you put it at the bottom of your shard deck and you draw a card. Or that's shard. Well, shard drain is just the act of putting it on the bottom of the deck. So Fizzy himself just says, okay, draw 1 when you do that. The reason why this is nuts is because if you get to 10 shards, Fizzy just says draw 2 cards a turn. Or even if you get to like 7 shards.
Right,
like
six shards a turn. So like this card is ridiculous in that I think it is well balanced. I think that when games can get over faster, when games get more synergistic, when decks become more sharp with set 1 coming out, this card will get a little bit more in line. But the problem with this card is it basically says like your deck is exponentially more powerful the later the game goes. And in starter deck format, when the decks are considerably less refined, the game is simply going to go late. Fizzy is the best spirit in starter deck format, and it's not even particularly close. It is just like you're just playing a completely different game. Like when you play the water spirit against someone not playing the water spirit, and the game goes to like turn 8 or 9, you're just in a whole different world. Like you have a whole grip of 5 while they're just hellbent drawing off the top. Like,
yep,
it's stupid good.
Yeah, once you start getting 10 mana, it doesn't matter if you have 10 mana if you only have like 2 cards in your hand, because you won't be able to use all that mana. So Fizzy kind of trades the mana resource for the card resource, which in the starter deck format, where the cards are intentionally less powerful than the game will be when it's finally fully released, it is a little bit just bonkers, I would say.
The other thing to recognize is that shard drain doesn't specify what kind of shard it has to be, so it's just an exhausted shard. So you're like, okay, well, I play a 3-drop. And then I will take 1 of those shards and I will draw a card. So it essentially just adds like an extra enter effect or an extra arrive effect to any unit you play or any spell you play. Just has a kicker that says draw a card. So
which is fine, by the way. This is not don't read this as a complaint. Again, it is just a symptom of the fact that it's a starter deck format. But if you're going to play in any of these starter deck events, I highly advise you to pick up a Fizzy.
And then some of the other things to note against blue is it has like some deck peek where you can like, again, for Jemiel himself, but also there's the Seer, the 1-drop that can, look at the top card of your deck and shift it to the bottom. You also have the deck has a lot of spells. And you have Mayu's assistant who like makes those spells cheaper. Ryan, can spells cost 0? Like, is it minimum 1?
Yes, they can.
Spells can cost 0. That is correct.
So it can reduce cards to being 0 cost.
So in
the starter deck, it just says your water spells, right? So in the starter deck, there's only 1 spell that could potentially be a 0 cost, and that's Phantasmal Guards, which just
not necessarily true, because you could have out 3 Mayus, and then your Cryptic Deflection will cost it.
Well, at least with having 1 out on the board. Right.
So Mayu's assistant is not very good right now, but keep an eye on this card, because if this game lasts for 20 years like Magic, Mayu's assistant is going to be banned someday. Mark my words. There is no way that this card lives the rest of its lifespan if this game lasts any amount of time. This is just the most unfuture-proofed card you could even imagine. Just unreal. Anyway.
Yeah, and then we'll talk briefly, just real quick. There's a lot of tempo kind of stuff in blue in terms of force blast in response to something attacking or blocking. Stormfish, if it dies, you get to bounce a unit, so you can kind of like crash it into cards to like generate a little tempo play. Iakuma Storm Knight says like if you have more towers broken than your opponent, you get to like bounce something when it comes into play. That kind of stuff, and then you can even just like switch your opponent's entire board to being exhausted. But we have Stormcaster, the Azure Tower, aka Matt Cosmore of Six Sages Gaming.
Stupid good.
He's pretty active on the Facebook community already, so you can find him there. But it's a 6-drop. It's probably the best of the like tower guardians, just really, because if you have water tower broken, he just says put 2 units your opponent controls on the bottom of their deck.
Yeah, just clean double terminate, like ridiculous. Have we learned what the extra text on Shard Hoarder does?
The extra text on Shard Hoarder being...
Yeah, so it's got this like weird type called view menu. Did we ever learn what that?
My god!
I think it's just an error in the database.
Yeah, no.
I know.
All these cards that I got, I like messaged our graphics guy like, "Hey, get me a picture of this card," and then I wanted like a black border on them instead of just like the actual art. So he just takes a screenshot for me, and he just like had his mouse hovered over something for the view menu, and that's how that ended up there.
There you go.
Can it be printed that way?
I will do my best.
So yeah, ultimately out the gate, water as a main deck color doesn't have a ton of like impressive stuff outside of Stormcaster. But the beauty is you can just make like the idea of playing Stormcaster as your finisher in a darkness deck. Something like that, because you can splash in those colors.
Right. And that I think is what most people do. I think you're going to see a lot of people playing Fizzy, and then 3 Stormcaster of Azure Tower, some number of Azure Guardian, which is the other good water card, and then basically just picks some combination of Great Stormfish, maybe 1 Shards of Winter, maybe Jakuma Storm Knight, and you pick 2 of those, and then that's your water splash.
Yeah. The splash there is going to be pretty standard. That is... I don't know why my echo is still so bad.
Always a new fun technology freak out every week,
Every single week. But yeah, that is at least the beginning of Argent Saga with the intro decks. Anything that... Well, Joseph, I would think that Ryan would know.
Oh, yeah. No, I was typing in chat. We haven't confirmed that we're doing rotation yet. I am trying to vouch for it. I think rotation's a very good thing, but there are a lot of pros and cons to rotation or not having rotation. We're kind of looking at the next couple of sets that we're designing before we really decide what we're going to be doing. I think a couple months ago, Jeff did want to do it, but it's not something we're locked into quite yet.
I really hope you guys do decide to do rotation.
Yeah, we'll find out. It's not something we even have to think about for at least a year and a half, right? So we want to like take that time to really
be like Hearthstone and announce that you're going to do a rotation like a month before you implement.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
Do we want to talk about the towers? Because I actually think the towers are the best part of all of Argent Saga.
Sure. So let's talk about the 5 towers. As it stands right now, there are just 5. I got to pull them back up on screen here. There's 1 for each color. And so let's start with Tower of Water. Tower of Water has 1500 defense and says if it's destroyed, you draw 2 cards. Light Tower gets you another 1500 defense, generates that 2000 Guardian token. Tower of Fire just says destroy a unit and only has 1000 power. Tower of Darkness has 1500 defense, and if it's destroyed, you can look at your opponent's hand and discard a card. And then Tower of Air says that you can return up to 2 units from the field to their owner's hand, and it's a 1000. So one of the things to note, my mic is super low again. I'm trying. I don't know what's going on. So one of the things that's important to note is that the towers that directly affect units that are already on the board are easiest to break.
Right. So... which kind of is saying that They're the towers that are the least that you want to break the earliest, which is just awesome. So every single color has at least one mana 1000, and red has 2 of them. And if you play a 1000 on 1, typically, or in a game in which just towers getting broken would cause a disadvantage, it might be correct to not attack with that because you'd rather build up a board and not risk anything happening that would cause your opponent to gain an advantage that you couldn't come back from. But the design of these towers is genius because you do want to attack with your 1 mana 1000 on turn 2, because the only 2 towers you risk breaking are the fire tower, which will destroy your 1-drop, which is about the best thing that the fire tower can possibly do from your perspective, or the air tower, which will only have 1 target for you that only costs 1 to recast. If the water tower, light tower, or darkness tower were 1000 health, it would be incorrect to attack with a 1 mana for 1000. And it is awesome that they decided to set the tower's health at what they did to encourage those attacks, to keep the game active and moving, and that is, I think, just awesome. Every single one of these towers has a clean play around that you can take advantage of when you're playing the game to try and engineer a situation that is the most advantageous for you. Some decks are better at it than others. The Darkness Tower is the most obvious. Obviously, if you have no cards in your hand, it does straight nothing. So you can, on a turn where you plan on breaking a Darkness Tower, you can play out your entire hand to the best of your ability, or play out cards that you don't care about getting rid of and then break the Darkness Tower. The Light Tower does nothing if they have all 5 of their unit slots filled. So I've done that a couple times, broken the Light Tower while they have all 5 units, or while you have the removal to clear it immediately. And then the Water Tower is interesting in that it will always provide its advantage, but it is also the only tower that doesn't somehow help you not lose on the turn that it's broken. So the Water Tower doesn't do anything if you break it on the turn that you also kill them. So like the play sequence is typically break the other 4, leave the water up, have a scenario in which you can break the Water Tower and immediately kill them so that the Water Tower didn't do anything for them. Mm-hmm. And again, as I already said about the Fire and the Air Tower, you want to break them while you have cheap units on the field so that their removal effects get as little value as possible. And so, and that might not be obvious to someone that hasn't played this, that is just kind of cursory looking at these, like, oh, these are just random mass effects that they put on towers to associated loosely with their color. No, they are all very specific, very smart, and the towers themselves contribute greatly to how much fun the game is.
Yeah,
I think one of the most interesting things that actually happens in this game is, like, there is a lot of RNG because the towers do start face down. You can scout them with weaker units. Like, as you attack them, they do flip face up, and if they're not destroyed, they stay face up. So you know which towers are available for you to attack and which ones are not. And one of the most interesting things in this game that still happens even when I'm testing with the cards that we haven't gotten to show you guys yet is when you've got a quickness guy in your hand, you've got a 1500 power unit on board, and they still have the red tower and the dark tower face down. You have to sit there and think and say, do I play my unit before I attack, or am I going to get it ripped out of my hand, or is it going to be destroyed in the field? And like that situation happens way more often than I would like it to, but it's still like it's
fun.
Right.
It's
and
really
this, by
fun.
the way, is another big part of the reason that attacking with 1000s for 1 is so awesome, and why it is just so cool that that's encouraged. It's because either you break a tower that's good for you, or you know something else. 1 mana 500s, obviously insane for scouting. They almost never get blocked, and then you get to see towers and plan out your turns a little bit more. And I actually just think it's so cool that scouting towers actually matters. Like, you'd really think that, like, saying that out loud, it sounds like something that shouldn't matter very much, but it is actually deeply relevant to how you plan out your turns.
Yeah. So that is actually going to do it for us here tonight.
Love it.
We will be doing here on the channel. Please, subscribe, and we'll be doing more Argent Saga content as we go forward. Keep in mind that we do this podcast every Monday. We alternate. We will be alternating weeks where we will do Argent Saga and Force of Will, kind of alternating back and forth, and then looking to do Argent Saga content during the week. So I'm super grateful to be a part of this community. Ryan, the direct line to the community manager here that you can talk to him pretty much every week. Tell us what you're most excited about. And Ryan, do we have something to give away?
We do, actually. So ARG, as you may or may not know, if you've ever been to any of our events, we have so many playmats that we don't know what to do with them. So we will be giving away 2 playmats if you are watching the stream tonight, and I'm sure Jeremy has more details on how that will happen. But we do have 2 playmats that we'll be giving away. I'm not exactly sure what art is going to be on them, but it will be Argent Saga related. I just have to go to work tomorrow and be like, hey, we got playmats to give away. What do we have? What can we print? That kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a random randomizer here.
A random randomizer.
A random randomizer. And I'm going to type in names here of people who've been hanging out with us. I'm going to pull up who's currently in the chat. And we're going to look who's all currently here because I can see.
Hey, I'm currently in the chat. Do I get to win?
Hey, I'm currently in the chat. Do I get to win?
Maybe.
Please, no, don't put me in it.
Just keep it to yourself. So I'm going to look up who all is here right now. If it'll let me, currently should.
It should, right?
Restore chat. People. Let's see.
Participants. There you go. I got a list of you.
Participants. Okay. I've got the list of people here. And we're going to draw a random name from these people. We got 2 to give away, right?
We got 2, yeah.
So we're going to give these people some playmats.
Oh, boy.
So Derek, Devin, Hyperion.
You can't just be saying these names.
I was like, oh, Derek wins.
Like, oh, Derek wins. Like, oh, no.
I thought. Poor Derek, he thought he won there for a second, too.
I thought Derek won there. I was like, wow, that was fast. But it was so like, Derek, and I'm like, oh, no, that's not.
And then there's a couple other people who've.
Everyone's like messaging their friends, like, yo, come here, win this playmat. Like, I don't play Argent Saga. It doesn't matter. If you wouldn't give it to me.
Do it anyway. Come and do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ryan, give me a random number between 7 and 15.
Between
9.
7 and 15.
9.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
1, 2. 3,
It's a seed.
4, 5.
Oh, okay.
6, 7, 8, 9. And the winner is Derek.
No way.
First place was Derek, and second place is Hyperion CG. So congrats to both of you guys. So go ahead. We already know Derek. It's very easy to get in contact with Derek.
Yeah.
But Hyperion, if you can send me a message, I'll put the chat here. rulerschoolcontent@gmail.com. If you can send me your address, we will get those playmats sent out to you. And huge thanks to ARG for hooking us up with these playmats to be able to give away. Super excited to give you guys more ARG content in the future. But until next time, this has been DMO73, and I have been joined by Ryan Miles and Brandon Bremont. And we'll see you guys next time. So class dismissed.